Hey everyone, before we get started, take a second to like and subscribe to the show.
It's the best way to help us share great information with more people. Thank you.
Hey everyone, welcome to CareLab.
Welcome to
Today,
CareLab,
we're going to be,
guys.
I know listen, it's actually been a hot minute since Brandy and
hmm
I have recorded together. We weren't sure we even knew each other or we were doing a
Don't even
podcast
know her.
anymore. But,
We're
but
back.
here we are, we're back. And we're going to be talking about something that's pretty relevant to this moment right now. That is heat, but specifically heat, and how does that affect the people with dementia that you might be caring for? So, a relevant topic. Should we jump right in?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how most of the country is under this like heat dome. And I
Hmm.
know you are new to Kansas City, but you've lived so much time in Dallas and it's hot there and we're used to having heat, but seeing some of these other places have so much heat and also not
Hmm.
be as used to it is
Right.
a challenge for a lot of reasons. And I think one thing that hasn't gotten talked a ton about is how heat impacts us when we get older.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. Oftentimes it's easy to think that we know that people as they age, they tend to they lose muscle mass, right? We struggle with weakness, we can struggle with balance. People have more cardiovascular issues, which also is affected by heat. But something that we don't think about is just generally we have a harder time regulating our temperature and coping with heat as we get older. And of course, that affects the people that we are caring for who have dementia as well. Um, Not necessarily more physiologically, right? Like it's not the people with
hmm
dementia have there's a higher impact of heat on them physiologically than other people of the same age. Um, However, our folks with dementia do have one really big difference, and that is that they cannot always, well, there's a couple big differences. One, let's talk about, is they can't always communicate what they're feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we are keen to pay attention to this with babies, right? Because we know
Hmm.
babies are not able to use their words yet, or if they do, they don't have all of them to be able to tell you exactly what they're feeling. And so they're crying, and you're like, oh, maybe they're hot because you're outside and you're managing it, but they're a baby, right? And I think one thing that we maybe forget a little bit is like, as when we're grown-ups, like we're used to having our words, so you don't really think forwardly about that. But it's kind of a really important thing to consider because if somebody's not able to communicate to you well that they are hot or overheating or need water, you just might not think about it because there's probably other things going on too. And you can
Hmm.
initiate to get yourself some water, get in the shade, or do what you need to do in order to protect yourself from the heat. And not everybody, especially if we have some advanced stages of dementia, are able to make those take that initiative in order to do that. So being able to like pay attention to that is super important.
Right. Something that I'm sure, again, if you are someone who's caring for someone with dementia, this is something you're probably familiar with anyway, what I'm about to say, which is that a lot of times our older population, our people with dementia, they may um, want to be in a sweater. They may want to have extra blankets on. They may feel more cold than you do all the time, right? Um, it's really important to keep in mind that especially in this heat wave that we're having, if you are overheated, there's a good chance that this person is also potentially dangerously overheated. So, of course, we want people to feel comfortable in their clothing, and there are like other sensory issues why folks might want to have that sweater or have that blanket or something like that. But keeping in mind that just because someone is cold all the time normally does not necessarily mean that they're cold right now in this moment. So really being aware of that. I think one of the other issues too is that oftentimes hydration can be a challenge for people
Just
with
anyway.
dementia. Yeah, anyway, doesn't matter what time of year, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter the weather. Um, and there are some reasons for this. One is because people simply forget to hydrate, right? If that glass of water is not right there in front of them, often they're literally not going to see that glass of water or that cup of juice or whatever it is. They may not be aware it's there. So they might feel thirst, but they might not have the ability to communicate that thirst, and they might not they might not be have the ability to see that that beverage is actually there in front, is actually there within their reach. So it's important to make sure, one, that whatever someone has something to drink, that it's right there in that direct visual field, so that they can actually see it and reach out and grab it.
I mean, literally, we are using these same techniques for our own selves. Like, I have
Mhm.
water on my desk, I have water in my car, I have water in my refrigerator. So that every time I go to those places, I see it. I'm like, oh, I should drink some more water, right? Like, this is why people carry huge jugs so they can see like how much water they drink all day. So if we need to do that and we are intentional about doing that, how much more so do maybe a person who doesn't have that level of initiative need to have that? And to your point about having it directly in front of you as a cue to like actually drink it, sometimes even that's not enough. And so that's why well, one, you might need to prop somebody, but two, this is part of the reason why red dishes help people do more intake. So we talk about it a lot for plates, but the same mechanism is still true for the drinks. So having a red glass or a red cup sitting there is even more like attractive to the eye, if that makes sense. Like, it catches your attention more. And so that's what ends up having people who have dementia drink 30% more when they're doing it from a red cup, because the contrast, right? Not most people's homes and most places, you don't have a ton of red things happening in the kitchen, and it's just, or on the dining table or wherever you're sitting at. And so it stands out. And so it helps to cue somebody to actually take that drink of water. So if that's happening in everyday life, consider what that means for today when it is 100 degrees outside. You're already probably a little bit dehydrated, and even more so because we're sweating. So it's like so important that we're like kind of not forcing, that's not the right word, but like being real intentional about like offering a drink. Can you talk a little bit about like ways to offer a drink that might work better than others in order to actually have that drink taken?
Yeah, well, partly I think that depends on the person and what they are used to, right? So for example, some people might do better with straws because they have trouble like tilting the cup. On the other hand, some people might not do well with straws because maybe they have a swallowing issue or it's hard for them to get that lip closure on there. I think the most important thing is, as you said, to make it something um, that is in their visual field that they can actually see, and you're providing prompting if needed to get them to engage um in actually drinking. Ideally, we would love for people to be able to pick up the cup or whatever it is and bring it to their mouth on their own. um People have a tendency to kind of have a little bit better success swallowing that way. But if we need to assist someone by helping to place the cup in their hands and bring it to their mouth to kind of cue that initiation, that beginning to drink, or if we need to help someone by bringing it to their mouth, then we definitely can do that too. I do think I like what you said before. We never wanna force anyone to to eat or drink. Like, we don't wanna force things into people's mouth, right? That's sort of a recipe for aggression, agitation, not to mention choking. So we wanna be intentional about how we're doing that, but trying to make it as much part of a natural process as we possibly can that feels regular to that person, I think is really important. The other thing that I would kind of want to add as an aside is, again, we can't overstate the importance of making this something that people can actually see and get to in front of them.
Hmm.
Um, but as you said, Brandy, sometimes people still won't realize that they are thirsty when people progress through dementia. Sometimes they lose awareness of what some of the sensations that their body is telling them actually mean. So, for example, sometimes people might need to have a bowel movement and they feel that sensation, but they're not really sure what that means, and that can be distressing. So, on the flip side, someone could be thirsty and know they were and feel that thirst, but not necessarily equate that with the need to take a drink. So just being aware, monitoring people's fluid intake so that you are aware how much they are or are not drinking is really important. And then I think the last thing that I would add is taste matters too,
A
right?
lot.
So a lot. And what is Brandy? Tell us, what is the last? what is the last taste bud that lives in our mouths? It keeps going till the end.
Is it sour?
It's sweet.
It's sweet. Oh, yeah,
It
it's sweet. It's sweet, and the reason that's so ridiculous that I forgot is because I had wanted to talk about jelly drops, which
mm,
is like a product that exists in which essentially it looks like kind of like a gummy bear, but bigger, and it carries water, but it's sweet. And so if it's I can't remember how many you need, but basically there's a certain number of these little pieces that equal a glass of water functionally to your body, and they're easier to take in because of all the physical challenges you just talked about. Picking up the cup, maybe doing a straw is hard, or any number of things, right? This is like red and colorful, easy to pick up with your fingers, sweet, so it tastes good because sweet lasts. Our sweet taste buds last the longest, and then they're getting water with it, so it's like pretty ingenious, and another way to like get more water into the system.
yep, absolutely. Think about it. If you have something that tastes good, you are more likely to want to put that thing in your mouth, right? That doesn't change when we have dementia. And the last thing that people can taste is sweet. So if you have someone who like just really doesn't seem like they want to drink their water, think about ways that you can maybe safely, jelly drops are a great idea, that you can safely sweeten that beverage for that person. And that can often help with that fluid intake as well.
There's a lot of really easy ways to do that too. Like I'm trying to get us to have more water at our house. And so we
Hmm.
do sugar free water enhancers that we put into the water, or sparkling water. It doesn't add any more sugar, but it tastes sweet. There's lots of good ways to do it without feeling like you got to intake actual more sugar. Um,
Hmm.
and the other thing I wanted to say, like you brought up a lot of the important features about physically what might make it hard to take a drink. But one time, I was seeing a client, and the mom had dementia and was living at home and had so many challenges that it was communication challenges essentially. And
Hmm.
I came in and used my words differently than they're using their words, and that's all we changed was like how I was talking to her, and she completely performed differently, right? And like was able to engage in the things they wanted her to engage in. And they're like, "You're like a miracle worker." And I'm like, "I'm not a miracle worker." It is like really clear the difference between a couple of small phrases that can help people initiate and take action. So if it's about water, so that's what we're talking about, as opposed to, "Are you thirsty? Do you want some water?" Number one, that's two questions in one time, right?
Uh
I would
huh.
say, "Here you go, drink some water," and just hand them the cup, right? Like there's no decision to be made. It's just like, oh, water, drink, right? You just do the thing as opposed to like, what was the first question? What was the second question? What does that mean? Am I thirsty? Like there's all these things that your brain does just like that now. But if you have dementia, those processes are way slowed down. And so you're getting frozen. And that frozenness essentially is read by a lot of us as refusal, right? And
Hmm.
as opposed to I literally don't know how to process this information. And so changing the phrasing of the way you do things can make all the difference. And so that's super important with water, right? Especially because all the things you just said and the taste aspect, and it might not be the first thing they're thinking about doing or want to do, especially if it doesn't feel good in their mouth. So prompting in that way can make a big difference.
I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah, I'm so glad that you said that because it really does matter how we are talking to our folks with dementia that we care for and how we're asking them to do things. Thank you for saying that. So well put. Okay, there's one last thing that I want to talk about here before we wrap up this quick episode, and that is that our folks with dementia can also, as we know, have other diseases and conditions
Mm,
as well, right? And
sure.
again, their ability to communicate, people's ability to communicate when they have dementia can be impaired. Some other diseases and conditions are really, really affected by this heat. So make sure that you're really keeping a close eye on things like how much someone is drinking, if they're swelling, if they're having more shortness of breath, other kind of things that just don't feel right. Because again, people with any kind of heart condition can really be affected by heat. People who have any kind of issue with thermoregulation, so just regulating the temperature of your body, people with a history of burns, people with multiple sclerosis, MS, right? Folks with Parkinson's disease who also often have a Parkinsonian type of dementia, right? These are folks who, in addition to just if they have dementia as well, in addition to the regular symptoms and struggles of dementia, they might also have other things going on in their body that make it
Mhm.
hard to regulate heat or make the heat extra dangerous for them. So having an understanding what that is and keeping an eye on symptoms and just really being aware of the need to keep people cool, keep them hydrated during this time is super, super important.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. Hopefully, this was helpful for everybody during this heat wave, and let you keep an eye on everybody and get them their water and get them out of the sun. And if you have appreciated this, please share it with somebody, like and subscribe, and then leave us a comment. And try to give us a rating because that helps other people who need this be able to find it. So until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.